Folks, I'm Rhinohorn7, and today, like every day, I am going to read 10 comics and talk about them because I am trying to read every single DC comic ever released. So today, I've read the 10 comics already. I will now discuss them, starting with Action Comics number 7. Now, a couple things this issue. Starting with Superman, of course. Superman's always the main feature of every Action Comics, so he's always at the start. Whatever. Okay. Superman saves a circus. So the plot in this comic revolves around a failing circus, and Superman is like, hey, I will become part of your circus so that we can bring in customers. And he does that. And then there's like bad guys who like sabotage it because they want the guy who runs the circus to pay them protection money. And if he doesn't pay them, they get to own the circus. So they try to destroy the circus to make sure nobody comes back to it, even though Superman's there. So, kind of like a Dick Grayson thing, except Dick Grayson doesn't exist and nobody dies. Also, possibly an earlier version of Steve Lombard in here, maybe. There's a guy at the Daily Planet who's kind of an asshole to Clark, the entire comic, and that's pretty much just Steve Lombard, but unnamed and obviously doesn't look like Steve. In Zatara, they go to another diamond mine, man. They're just doing so many. Every Zatara issue feels like it revolves around a gem of some sort. At least the most recent ones. It always revolves around some sort of gem or diamond or mine or something, and it's getting boring, man. Adventure Comics number 33. In Federal Man. Dude, this was a really good issue for Federal Man. Steve loses his memory and joins a mob. I'm being serious. Steve Lombard, in the explosion. Sorry, Steve Lombard. Steve Carson, after the explosion in the last issue, the house falls on him. He escapes, but he loses his memory. He notices he has a gun in his pocket, so his, no memory having self thinks, oh, I have a gun, I must be a thief. So he sticks up a guy. Hey, stop. What are you doing? You just knocked my light over. I knocked my light over, but you caused it. Hey. Okay. What was I talking about? Right, Steve Carson. So he finds the gun in his pocket, and he's like, I have a gun, I must be a thief, because he lost his memory. So he sees a random guy, and he sticks him up, he's like, hey, give me your money. The guy punches him, and says, hey, you shouldn't be doing petty thievery, you should join me, because I'm part of a mob, of a gang. So Steve joins the gang. Then he's with the gang leader. The gang leader's about to shoot a cop dead. Steve punches the gang leader's arm. The cop shoots the gang leader dead. Dun dun dun. And that is the end of that issue, I believe. Something around there. Also in Adventure Comics number 33, there is Professor Doolittle. It's just like a funny strip. I don't think there's any words. But Professor Doolittle is kind of an asshole because he's lazy and he gets a bunch of two-year-olds to push him in a wagon. I'm going to do that when I'm 80. Detective Comics number 22. Slam Bradley. I just realized what this is referring to. One of my notes is just, what the fuck, dude? I was confused what it meant for a second, but then I remembered. The panel's probably on screen now. You can't do that, man. You cannot do that. Also in this issue, Shorty dies. No, he doesn't actually die. He's just in suspended animation. And he does get saved. The main villain is a fat nerd. And also Slam kills a guy in this issue. He just kills a guy. Which is something he's done before, so I don't know why I wrote that down. But that's, yeah. The plot in this issue it's very racist. So the first issue of Slam Bradley was also very racist. It revolved around a Chinese specifically, bad guy who ran a Chinese gang, and they I don't know what they did exactly, but Slam Bradley and Shorty defeated them. So now in this issue, the Chinese gang is back, ran by the same guy, and it's like, hey, we're gonna stop you again. And that's what happens. Also in Detective Comics is Oscar. and he's in a barrel. What are my notes? Why did I write that? Feature Funnies 15. There wasn't much in more fun comics number 34. Yeah, not much happening in more fun comics right now. Honestly, it's just it's empty, man. I don't know. That's where it all started, but I might try to maybe like really get into Jack Wood's, go back and read some of the issues so I can maybe I'll talk about Jack Woods. I don't even know if Jack Woods is still. I think Jack Woods still there. Action Comics 8. Okay, two things. One, I love most of this issue. It's really good until like the very end. So it starts off with a trial. Some kid was caught stealing, and he's sentenced to 2 years in prison. Clark is like, hey, he deserves a chance of redemption. Then this kid has 4 friends who are also robbers. They work with a guy named Gimpy. His name's Gimpy, yes. They work with that guy. And Gimpy is, teaching them how to rob and stuff. And he's like, hey, if you ever get in trouble with the cops, I've got your back. So the boys are like, hey, Gimpy, our buddy Frankie's in trouble with the cops, but you ain't help him. Gimpy's like, oh, I'll give you the money for lawyer fees for him if you do this heist for me and go to these 4 houses. So they go to the 4 houses, and while they're gone, Gimpy calls the police and is like, hey, I'm going to report this to the police because this is a trap. I'm actually tricking these guys into getting under prison so I don't have to deal with them anymore. Superman smashes the phone before Gimpy can... He says 2 of the areas, but he doesn't say the other 2. So Superman smashes the phone. He's like, hey, get out of my city. No! So Gimpy leaves. Gimpy leaves. You're led to assume he leaves. So Superman goes and finds the boys and he saves them from the police. And he's like, hey, boys, don't steal. But they won't listen. They're like, hey, Gimpy sucks. So Superman grabs them and he runs across wires and he jumps in the air and he's trying to scare them. But then it turns out they're excited. And then they're like, hey, that was really cool. If someone as cool as you is a good guy, then we want to be good guys too. And Superman's like, and he gives them a speech about how, they can't, it's not their fault that they're, stealers. It's about the area they live in. And Gimpy tries to shoot at them, but Superman saves them and throws Gimpy in the water. And I assume Gimpy drowns. And Superman's like, hey, okay, this is where it starts sucking, by the way. Like, before this next part is terrible. But everything before that I liked. I liked the Superman scaring them, but they're actually excited stuff. I liked the kids themselves. I liked how it focused on them stealing out of necessity, not because they want to steal. To solve this problem, to get rid of, so that people don't live in the slums and don't have to live in the slums, Superman destroys them. He destroys, like, an entire neighborhood. And then a few weeks later, the government builds apartments. First, government wouldn't do that too. Even if the government did do that, none of these people are homeless for weeks. I mean, they can't afford that. The government's not going to give it to them for free. Superman, what are you doing? Dude, you can't do that. You can't just destroy people's homes. You can't do that, man. That's not going to work. I'm sorry. Still love you. But this is why Slam Bradley is better. Slam Bradley would not do that. But everything before he destroyed the homes, that's good stuff. I would suggest reading this issue. Definitely. It is a very good issue. Action Comics 33. Federal Men. So, the gang members are mad that Steve Carson caused their leader to get killed. So they're all at the meeting place. And they're like, hey, why'd you do that? Steve's like, I was doing the right thing. I was doing the smart thing. If he'd shot at the cop, then we'd all be in trouble. So they're like, okay, that's right. You're the new leader. So now Steve Carson leads a gang. And I guess we'll see where that goes. Detective Comics 23. Slam Bradley. Time travel. Yep. They go through time. So, Slam and Shorty are fighting like a group of thugs. But it's too much for them to handle. How are they going to get others? There's too many for them to handle. Some guy pulls up with a machine gun and mows them down. And saves Slam and Shorty. And he's like, hey, I know your names. Come to this place at 8 p.m. Turns out he's a time traveler from 10 minutes in the future. Okay, he made the machine. Okay, he has a machine, a time machine. The Time Flyer. He made it 10 minutes, like at 8:10 p.m. He made it at 8:10 p.m. and then used it to go back to like 5 p.m. when Shorty and Slam were fighting them, and then save them. And I went back to 8 p.m. And then Shorty and Slam and the guy go in the Time Flyer, and they go to 2 billion years in the future. 2 billion years in the future. Which is stupid, by the way. Don't do that. You don't want to go that far in the future, I promise. So there they find plant and bird and human people. And they find 3 people. They're captured by these 3 people. And it turns out these 3 people are like prisoners, and they're said to be executed because they didn't celebrate the prince losing his tonsils. So they want to help Slam and Shorty escape if Slam and Shorty take them to a different time. Slam and Shorty agree, but then the guards arrive, so they all have to split up, and the flower guy is like, hey, you guys can't follow us, but Slam and Shorty keep following them, because they're like, we don't know where to go, so we're going to follow you. So the flower's like, hey, if you don't stop, I'm going to throw this death flower at you. Shorty doesn't realize that's what he's saying at first, so he keeps running. Slam's like, no, Shorty, stop. The flower gets thrown, hits Shorty, Shorty dies. Second time Shorty has died. Oh, but he didn't actually die. Oh, because then a bunch of humans come. Humans dressed as Santa Claus, by the way. And I guess they're the guards, but they're dressed like Santa Claus for some reason. And they come in, and they're like, hey, we can save this guy if we are quick. And Slam's like, okay, I'll get in your car. And then they crash. The car crashes. And that's where the issue leaves off. So I guess we'll figure out next issue what happens. Feature Funnies 15. Once again, not much happening. More fun comics. Number 40. So that is my 10 for the day. Today was actually the shortest, not the shortest video I've ever done, but the shortest video of this format I've done. And that is nice. Also, I'm changing my schedule a little bit on some things. I'm doing videos every day, right? That's not changing. Monday is Batman, yes. After Batman, I make a... do I do after Batman or Robin? Okay. So I'm going to make compilation videos, right? Like the recent one I did. DC Comics, reading every DC comic, part 1. So part 2, I'll do either after the introduction of Batman or after the introduction of Robin. I'm not sure yet. Originally, part 2 was going to be after the introduction of Wonder Woman, and it was going to be a really long one, and I was going to be edited down, but I don't want to put all that effort in. I also don't want to wait that long. So we're going to do, after the introduction of Robin, we're going to do part 2, and then part 3 will be after the introduction of Wonder Woman, and then from there, I'll just, figure it out as we go. So, that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you for watching. Tomorrow's video will be a little bit shorter and a little bit different because I will be in a different place. Sunday and Monday. Sunday should be back to normal, but it might not be. Monday will 100% be back to normal and also be the introduction of Batman. Thank you all for watching. Goodbye, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!